Imagine a device contrived in such a way to cause pain and demonstrate terror. Presenting the spider, a medieval torture device mainly administered to the accused of infidelity or any other scandal, it was meant to perform two functions. 1. Punishment, and 2. To send across a scary signal to one and all who got to witness it in action. But it is not so much the story of the device. It's about the society that existed to provide for such a thing, and it is about unnerving truths laid beneath. Let me set the scene. Medieval Europe, where stern moral codes confronted the most horrible forms of punishment, fragile existence in which one's good name stood between survival and disintegration. In such an environment, charges of adultery or scandal were not just socially condemning, but deadly. Most of all, accusations leveled against women generally had no proof. A saw-toothed iron device, usually in the form of a claw, with sharp prongs that could be heated until red-hot, simple in design, yet devastating in its purpose. A dark dungeon full of shades, the air thick with damp stone and the smell of burning wood smoke. A crowd has congregated, part morbid curiosity, part forcibly to bear witness as an awful warning to others. The victim, more often than not divested of dignity, is trembling with fear as the executioner readies the mechanism. Now well ablaze from the fire and brought forth, the tension is palpable. The tearing of skin and muscle, with functional brutality aside, the cries of the victim tear through the silent air. Imagination defies the degree of pain possible. Physical and psychological scarring will assure the punishment is carried long after it is over. But herein comes the catch-knot. All such people who faced the spider were guilty. Very often, the contraption was used as a means of oppression, an assassin's tool in the hands of such people who aimed at silencing opposition or eliminating a rival. Most vulnerable among them were women accused of adultery, since in a patriarchal society, where the worth of women is often equated with their virtue, this can amount to unimaginable torture. Whereas one might be envisioning these tortures behind closed doors, the reality is even more sinister. Most were publicly designed affairs intended to instill belief in a society through fear. Next, identify in writing the creators of the spider. Though rare and scattered, records of its exact construction, devices like it were common in medieval times, wherein torture was believed to be not only punishment, but one surefire method of extracting confessions or simply maintaining order. The church, monarchies, and local authorities yielded such tools. Every deployment had told a message. Fall out of line, and this could be you. It wasn't about justice, it was about power. But more than everything, the most abhorring phenomenon that transpired in this story is the fact that cruelty was institutionalized. To people who lived during those times, public punishments were spectacle-like. People flocked to the area not just to watch, but even to join in the public censure of the criminal. The screams of the victim, the sight of his suffering, were made collective as an act of communal bonding and shared fear. But what does it say about a society when cruelty becomes spectacle? Now let's delve a little deeper. The spider wasn't all about the pain. It was symbolic. The claw ripping and tearing the flesh apart was indicative of how society attempted to rip an individual of his humanity. Still, as gruesome as this may be, an indication that any collective had powers to destroy an individual, it does reveal something uncomfortable about human nature, which is complicity in this case. The spider only works because it's not just one executioner holding the power, but it's all of society allowing, encouraging, even celebrating such punishments. But here comes the surprise. Although we have long ceased to use such devices as the spider in their essential spirit, they linger on in more subtle guises today. Just think how even today, the common man deals with people accused of social transgression. The public shaming just continues that tradition very much. We use newer tools, but we still look to humiliate, keep control over a person in order to isolate him socially. What happened in the medieval dungeon isn't as far removed from us as we'd like to believe. But which leads to the most interesting question. What are those stories good for? How easy is it to think about the spider as coming from a really barbaric past so far away from us, it practically could be considered fiction? But history is not what happens, but rather a mirror. It shows us the dark side of human nature, and at the same time urges one towards turning into it. The spider reminds one of certain risks, like those of mass psychosis, terrors of unbridled force, and empathy. Just for a second, try and picture this. You're accused of something you have never done, and no one believes you. It is peer pressure against you. The system is against you, and you have no proof of your innocence. The terror of the spider isn't about the pain, but the surety of losing all control and one's future at the mercy of other people. While we may not be able to relate to it in medieval torture in the present day, this feeling of powerlessness exists so many ways for thousands of people on Earth. So what are we left with? First, to question the very fabric of the systems we are part of. Who is in power, and what does one do with that power? Secondly, an appeal for empathy. It is so much easier to judge, point fingers, join the crowd, yet history stands as a sad testament to the consequences of such behavior. And third, a challenge to break the cycle. It has been crafted to instill fear, squash dissent, and coerce compliance. But we can choose a different path. Lastly, the spider is not a torture device, but also a symbol of what the end result will be if one succumbs to fear and cruelty. It should remind one of justice, mercy, and bravery. More than anything, this is a clarion call to action, to forge a world where such terrors remain well in the past. What are your views on this dark time in history? Can you even imagine living a life where such punishment was the order of the day, considered normal? Finally, leave any of your feelings regarding this in the comments below. I'll love hearing from you. If you found this story interesting, subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell not to miss any deep dive into history's thrilling tale. Thank you for watching. History is not of the past, but to guide the future. Stay curious, stay compassionate. See you in the next video.